Hey, Soul Stories fam. We've got a sweet and totally swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in. Rain drizzled over New York that night, each drop tapping the pavement like a slow jazz rhythm. Near Fifth Avenue, the square bustled with people rushing by, yellow taxis honking nonstop, while Zara dragged her sneakers, the heels worn down so much they looked vintage, the kind no one would ever want to collect. She was exhausted. All day she had been job hunting, from laundromats to fast food joints, only to be turned down everywhere. The little backpack on her shoulder was featherlight, holding nothing but a thick notebook and an old t-shirt. "Well, I guess it's another night at the subway station," she muttered, her stomach growling. But just then, her waterlogged shoes slipped on the stone steps of a luxury hotel. Zara yelped, "Ah!" and pitched forward. She braced herself for the smack of cold pavement, only to be caught by a pair of strong arms. "This cushion is warmer than concrete." The words slipped out before she could stop them, and Zara wanted to sink into the ground from embarrassment. She opened her eyes, and the cushion turned out to be a man. Tall, dressed in a crisp Armani suit, with a face straight out of a Forbes cover. He looked down at her with eyes caught somewhere between surprise and amusement. "You okay?" he asked in a deep, warm voice. Zara blinked. Aside from my dignity lying on the sidewalk with me, yes, I'm fine." The man chuckled softly. Behind him, a bodyguard in a black suit stepped forward with a frown. "Mr. Hale, let me move her away." "No need." The man raised his hand. He helped Zara back on her feet and adjusted the coat on her shoulders. "Rain makes everything slippery, not your fault." Hale, Benson Hale. The name lit up in Zara's mind when she caught sight of the giant LED billboard across the street. Hale Enterprises, building homes, building futures. Oh God, she had just fallen into the arms of one of the most famous young billionaires in America. Benson Hale had been on his way to his car after a late-night meeting, but now he found himself studying the girl in front of him. Wet hair clung to her face, her eyes tired yet strangely bright. She looked nothing like the women he usually met. No designer bag, no bold lipstick, just an honesty that made people pause. He pulled out his wallet and held out a few bills. "You should get something hot to eat. It's a cold night." Zara stared at the money. Her throat felt dry. Her stomach screamed. But then she lifted her chin with pride. "I don't want charity. I need a job." Benson raised a brow. "A job?" "Yes." Zara gripped her backpack straps tighter. "I can do anything. Cook, clean, wash windows, even sing lullabies to your dog if you have one. I just need proper work. No handouts." The bodyguard behind him cleared his throat, trying not to laugh. This homeless girl was asking for work with her dignity intact, complete with oddly specific examples. Benson was quiet for a moment. A thought crossed his mind. Just last week, his mother had complained about their estate being short-staffed. The longtime housekeeper was planning early retirement. He had been about to call an agency, but hadn't gotten around to it. And now this strange girl had literally fallen into his arms, asking for that exact job. Life really did have a peculiar sense of timing. "My family does happen to need extra help at the house," he said slowly. "The work isn't easy, but it pays well. There's a staff room for live-in employees." Zara's eyes widened. You're serious?" "Serious," he nodded. "I won't promise forever. Trial first. If you do well, you stay." Zara's lips trembled, caught between laughing and crying. A real job, for the first time in months. "I'll give it everything I've got." "Good." Benson held out his hand. "Then we have a deal." Zara placed her cold, wet hand in his. Strangely, that handshake felt as warm as a fireplace. Inside the SUV, the air was thick with awkwardness. The bodyguard in the front glanced at the rearview mirror, watching the girl huddled with her backpack. Suddenly, Zara broke the silence. "You sure you're not breaking any laws? I mean, taking a stranger home like this sounds straight out of a crime show." Benson glanced at her, the corner of his mouth twitching. "If you were really dangerous, you just missed your chance to steal my car." Zara giggled. "True. Too bad I only know how to burn rice, not cars." Her quip made Benson laugh for real, a rare, warm sound filling the car. The bodyguard blinked at his boss in surprise. It had been a long time since he'd seen Benson laugh that freely. When the SUV stopped in front of the Upper East Side mansion, Zara's jaw dropped. The place looked more like a museum, with glowing gardens and towering glass windows. "This isn't a house, this is a shopping mall," she muttered. "Careful," Benson replied dryly. "Say that louder, and my mother might start charging admission." Zara burst out laughing, half her nerves dissolving. Inside, the aging housekeeper greeted them, raising an eyebrow at the dripping girl. Benson introduced briefly, "New hire, starting today." Zara bowed so deeply she nearly toppled over again. Benson led her to the staff quarters. Nothing lavish, but clean and warm, with a soft bed. Zara stood still, then turned to him. "Thank you. Really, thank you. I won't let you down." He gave a short nod. "Get some rest. Work starts tomorrow. And don't worry. You don't need to sing lullabies to any dogs. I don't own one." Zara covered her mouth, laughing. "Then maybe I'll sing one for you." Benson froze, eyes flickering in surprise. Zara flushed bright red, whipping around and silently cursing herself. "God, Zara, what did you just say?" But Benson only shook his head, lips curving. It had been a long time since he'd had such a strange, yet warm evening. That night, Zara lay in her first real bed in months. Soft yellow light, warm blankets, the scent of clean soap. She opened her notebook and scribbled a line. "Don't ever look up at billboards searching for hope. Sometimes hope is simply the hand reaching out in the rain, asking, 'Want a job?'" Zara smiled, closed the notebook. Outside, the drizzle continued, but for the first time, her heart felt as warm as sunshine. The next morning, sunlight streamed straight through the window, startling Zara awake. It took her a few seconds to remember. She was lying on a real bed, inside a mansion as grand as a museum, not on some cold bench at the subway station. She sat up quickly, reminding herself, "First day of work. Don't mess this up." The butler led Zara into the kitchen, giving a quick briefing. "The young master prefers simple meals, but he still expects a proper dinner. You can try cooking today." Zara nodded eagerly. She decided to start with rice. Safe and easy, right? Except when faced with a gleaming, spaceship-like rice cooker, she kept pressing the wrong buttons. 10 minutes later, instead of fluffy rice, thick black smoke was pouring out. "Oh no!" Zara panicked, rushing around to find the off switch, coughing as she fanned the smoke. The fire alarm shrieked, nearly making the butler's glasses fall off. Just then, the door swung open. Benson had returned to grab a forgotten folder. He stopped at the doorway, taking in the scene. Smoke everywhere. The girl's hair wild, her face smudged, wielding a ladle like a weapon. "Should I be worried this place is about to explode?" he asked, half serious, half exasperated. Zara spun around, coughing. "I swear I was only trying to cook rice. Don't burn your house down." Benson froze for a second. Then he laughed. A genuine laugh, deep and warm enough to make Zara stand there in shock. "Give me another chance," Zara blurted, eyes blazing with determination. "I'll make something else. I can actually cook." Benson folded his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "I want to see it with my own eyes." Zara immediately pulled chicken and vegetables from the fridge, marinating them with garlic, pepper, lemon, and honey. When she dropped a few carrot slices on the floor, she improvised. "I was just testing how sharp the knife is." The butler turned away, shoulders shaking from suppressed laughter. Slowly, a rich aroma filled the kitchen. Tangy, sweet, and warm. The smell of burnt rice faded, replaced with something that made stomachs growl. When Zara finally served honey lemon chicken with roasted veggies, she was nervous. "If you don't like it, I'll eat all of it myself. Consider it self-punishment." Benson cut into the chicken with his fork and took a bite. Silence stretched. Zara held her breath. At last, he looked up, the corner of his lips curving. "Better than what I had at the restaurant yesterday." Zara's eyes widened. "You're not joking?" "No," he said firmly. "If you keep cooking like this, I might get too lazy to eat out again." Zara blushed while the butler gave a subtle nod of approval. "Seems we may have found our new cook." That evening, as Zara was cleaning up, Benson came back to fetch a glass of water. He paused at the doorway, watching her fuss with the dishes. "You did well today," he said. Zara turned, smiling sheepishly. "Better than filling your house with smoke, at least?" Benson chuckled. "At least this time, I gotta eat." They both laughed, the tension melting away. For Benson, a house once filled only with silence now had laughter. For Zara, it was the first time in months she felt truly useful, not pitied, but valued. That afternoon, the Hale kitchen was unusually lively. Zara, wearing an oversized apron the butler had given her, was fumbling through her very first batch of cookies as a billionaire's maid. The scent of butter, vanilla, and a hint of smoke, she'd forgotten to turn off the oven a few seconds earlier, drifted through the polished space. "At least it's not as burnt as yesterday," Zara told herself, sniffing proudly at her creation. She arranged the cookies on a plate, added a glass of cold milk, and planned to share them with the butler and a few of the security guards. The kitchen doors swung open. Zara looked up, expecting Benson. But no. Bright red stilettos clicked sharply against the polished wood floor, trailing an overwhelming wave of expensive perfume. A woman swept in as though the kitchen were a runway. Blonde curls, a glittering bodycon dress, and a designer bag dangling from her wrist. Zara blinked. Wait, did a guest wander backstage by mistake? "Excuse me." The woman's voice cut through the air, cold as glass, paired with a raised brow. "Who gave you permission to be in this kitchen? And wearing that?" Her gaze flicked Zara up and down, stopping at the flour-smudged apron. Zara scratched her head sheepishly. Hello. I'm Zara." "Zara?" the woman sneered. "Sounds as cheap as that budget clothing brand." Zara just nodded cheerfully. "Yep, Zara. Not the brand, though, just me." The comeback caught the woman off guard. She planted a hand on her hip, eyes sweeping the kitchen. "Let me ask again. Who are you, and why are you in Benson's house?" "Oh, I'm the maid," Zara answered honestly. "I just started yesterday. Mr. Hale, gave me a trial job." The moment Benson's name slipped out, the woman's eyes flashed sharp as a blade. "I'm Juliet, Benson's girlfriend." The words rang with territorial claim. Zara's eyes widened. "Girlfriend? Oh, so this was exactly like the stories the women at the shelter used to whisper. Sooner or later, the rich guy's model girlfriend shows up and Cinderella gets kicked to the curb. Still, Zara smiled and held out the plate of cookies. "Would you like to try one, Juliet?" "I just baked them." Juliet looked at the plate as though Zara had offered her dirt. "You think I'd put that cheap sugar flour mix in my mouth? I eat at Le Bernardin, not some maid's kitchen." Zara awkwardly pulled the plate back, muttering, "Well, I've never eaten at Le something, so I wouldn't know the difference." Juliet laughed scornfully, then flopped into a chair. "Do you really think Benson would care about some homeless maid? Don't kid yourself. You're just filler. Understand? A gap I haven't had time to close yet." Zara's eyes went wide. "Filler? You mean like cement?" The butler, walking in, nearly choked, holding back laughter. Juliet glared, but Zara only smiled innocently, as if the comparison made perfect sense. Just then, the front door opened. Benson walked in, sleeves rolled up, fresh from a meeting. He froze at the sight. Juliet perched grandly at the kitchen table, Zara standing nearby with flour still on her cheek. "Benson!" Juliet cried, her voice pitching high. "Do you know what I found? Some strange girl in your kitchen, parading around in an apron like she owns the place. What's going on?" Benson glanced at Zara, then at Juliet. His answer was simple. "She's new staff. I hired her." Juliet stiffened. "You hired her? As a maid?" "Yes." Benson poured himself a glass of water, completely calm. "The house needed help. She can cook." "Cook?" Juliet nearly screamed. "Are you serious, Benson? You, one of the most successful CEOs in America, brought a subway rat home to be your maid?" Zara raised her hand timidly. "Actually, I didn't pick through trash. I only slept in the subway station." The butler hurried to wipe the counter, hiding his laughter. Juliet glared at Benson, her voice sharp. "What's your angle here? You plan to humiliate yourself in front of high society with this charity case? Benson sipped his water, unbothered. I just need someone to manage the house. Nothing more. Juliet's jaw clenched. She had expected him to soothe her, to say, "This is temporary. Don't worry, you're the one I love." Instead, his silence was cold, firm. You're not even going to defend me against this bargain bin competition? Juliet spat, pointing straight at Zara. Benson set his glass down, eyes like steel. There's no competition here. Juliet, you're overreacting. The words hit Juliet like ice water. She was used to being indulged, used to Benson's politeness. But tonight he didn't defend, didn't flatter. Only that unyielding coldness. Her anger boiled over. Fine, play your little game. But don't blame me when the whole city hears Benson Hale is keeping a maid as his mistress. Zara panicked. Wait, what? No, that's not true. I swear, I only got here yesterday. I can't even turn on the rice cooker yet. Enough, Zara. Benson's voice cut low, steady. He turned to Juliet, gaze sharp as a blade. You're insulting someone who works in my house. If you came here just to cause trouble, you should leave. Juliet froze. Benson had never spoken to her like that. Fine. She tossed her hair, heels clacking as she stormed out. You'll regret this. The door slammed shut. The kitchen fell quiet again, filled only with the lingering scent of cookies. Zara swallowed hard, murmuring, Did I mess something up? I didn't mean to. Benson sighed, arms folding, eyes distant. It's not your fault. Juliet's always been that way. The butler cleared his throat softly, then slipped out, leaving the two alone. Zara glanced at the plate of cookies, then nervously offered them again. Would you try one? I promise they're not burnt this time. Benson's eyes flickered. In that icy gaze, a faint warmth stirred. He picked up a cookie and took a bite. Silence, then the corner of his lips lifted slightly. Better than I expected. Zara let out a huge breath, grinning. So that means I still have my job? Yes, Benson replied, his voice low but certain. You still have your job. That night, Juliet stormed out of the mansion in fury. But in the kitchen, where the sweet scent of butter still lingered, another storm quietly began to brew. Not of threats or tears, but of a maid's shy smile and the rare nod of approval from a billionaire who seemed untouchable. Evening settled quietly over the Hale mansion. After dinner, Benson lingered unexpectedly in the kitchen, where Zara was tidying up. He rarely chatted with staff, but his curious gaze made her a little self-conscious. Zara, Benson's deep voice broke the silence. You once said you had to drag yourself everywhere. What did you mean? Zara paused, then gave a small laugh. Oh, that. I meant I couldn't afford the subway. I had to walk miles every day in these sneakers. She lifted her old shoes, the heels worn thin, the soles peeling as if they might come apart any second. Benson stared. And you've kept them? Of course, they've carried me through the hard parts of life. They're my battle companions. Her tone was playful, but then her eyes glimmered mischievously. If you want, Mr. CEO, I could give you a special experience, a tour in these sneakers. Exclusive package. Free for VIP clients only. She expected him to roll his eyes or ignore her. Instead, Benson was silent for a beat, then said quietly, Give them to me. What? Zara nearly dropped her dish towel. Those shoes! I want to try them. Her mouth fell open. Was he serious? 5 minutes later, the butler nearly fainted as he walked past. CEO Benson Hale, in pressed slacks, a crisp white dress shirt, tie still neatly fastened, wearing a pair of ragged, falling-apart sneakers. Let's go, Benson said, arms folded, eyes calm as though this were some solemn ritual. Wait, you actually plan to go outside like that? Zara gasped. Not outside, just around the garden. I don't want to cause a media scandal. Zara burst into giggles. Good call. If the paparazzi got this shot, game over. They started walking along the stone path in the mansion's vast garden. Within minutes, Benson frowned. Why does this hurt so much? Zara grinned. Welcome to my world. The soles are as thin as paper. After 10 blocks, your feet feel like they're being roasted on salt. I can barely handle a few minutes. He shook his head. half complaining, half amazed. You did this every day? Yep. But hey, I didn't need a gym membership. Zara winked. Where do you think I got these muscles? Benson chuckled under his breath. The image was almost absurd. A billionaire, usually chauffeured in luxury cars, now trudging like an old man, each step squeaking pathetically, while the maid bustled beside him, light on her feet. Oddly enough, it felt refreshing. From a distance, the butler tried to stifle his laughter, his face turning red. The sight of his usually aloof employer hobbling around in tattered sneakers would be a memory for life. Zara tilted her head. So, do you get why I treasure these now? Benson stopped, looked down at his feet, then nodded slowly. I get it. They're not just shoes. They're a story. Something softened in his eyes. For a brief moment, Zara glimpsed a different Benson, not the cold CEO, but a man who genuinely wanted to understand a life outside his limousine. They made one full lap of the garden. When Benson finally pulled the sneakers off, he let out a sigh of relief, as though he had survived a mission. Zara reclaimed her shoes, grinning. Congratulations, you've officially completed the Subway Starter Pack, my very first VIP client. Benson shook his head, but the corner of his lips curved. Thank you for the lesson. For the first time, I actually understand what tired feet feel like. Zara hugged the sneakers, eyes sparkling. So that means I still have my job? Yes, Benson said, his voice low but firm. You still have your job. That night, Benson sat in his study. The image of those worn-out sneakers kept surfacing in his mind. Old, ugly, barely holding together. Yet they carried a story of survival and grit. Just like Zara, she wasn't merely a clumsy maid. She carried an entire world he had never stepped into. Late afternoon, after combing through a thick stack of contracts, Benson walked down to the kitchen with weariness etched across his face. His tie sat slightly askew, and faint lines marked his forehead. Zara was bustling over a small pan. At the sound of footsteps, she turned and beamed. Perfect timing. Want to try a $5 dinner? Benson raised a brow. A $5 dinner? Yep, hot dogs. I saw some sausages and buns in the fridge. I know you usually eat steak at those five-star restaurants, but tonight, let's switch it up. A very authentic American street food experience. He studied her for a long moment, ready to refuse, but her eyes shone with such playful challenge and eagerness that he exhaled, resigned. All right, but if I get food poisoning, you'll take responsibility. Deal. Zara grinned, rolling up her sleeves. The quiet kitchen soon filled with the sounds of clattering pans. Zara fried the sausages, toasted the buns, and added onions, ketchup, and mustard. She chatted as she worked, words tumbling out like steam from the pan. You know, hot dogs basically kept me alive those months at the subway station. $1 got me something simple. If I was lucky and found a good cart, I figured the universe was looking out for me. Benson leaned against the counter, silently watching. Her hands were clumsy yet quick, her hair a little messy, but her eyes glowed. Somehow the scene made his grand kitchen feel like a real home. Zara placed a steaming hot dog in front of him, slightly crooked, but piled high with toppings. Voila, not Michelin star, just mustard Lynn. Benson arched a brow at the ridiculous pun, but the corner of his lips lifted. He took a bite. The bun was soft, the sausage was crisp and hot, and the mustard was sharp with spice. Simple yet strangely complete. He chewed in silence for a few seconds before murmuring, almost surprised, "This tastes better than fine dining." Zara's eyes went wide, then she burst out laughing. Did I hear that right? Mr. CEO, who once spent $500 on a steak, just admitted a $5 hot dog is better? Benson nodded, sincere. Honestly, maybe because it isn't pretentious. No overdone plating, just simple, real. Zara rested her chin on her hand, voice playful but tinged with thought. Exactly. Happiness is like a hot dog. Doesn't need tuxedoed waiters or vintage wine. Just something warm, at the right moment, with someone to laugh beside you. Benson found himself staring at her a little too long. Something about those words tugged at him. How long had it been since he'd had a meal that felt this comfortable? Zara munched away, still talking between bites. When I was little, my dad used to take me to the hot dog cart near his work. We'd eat and race to see who finished first. I always won, but really, he slowed down on purpose just to make me happy. She smiled, but her smile carried a shade of nostalgia. Benson tilted his head. Your father, he must have been a good man. He was. He taught me joy doesn't come from fancy things. It's in the moments you share with someone. Too bad. I lost him too soon. The air grew quiet. Benson wanted to say something, but Zara broke the heaviness with a grin. At this rate, you'll lose to me. I'm talking and eating faster than you. He chuckled, shaking his head. I don't think I've ever competed in a hot dog speed race. Well, now you have. Welcome to Zara's world. When they finished, the paper plates streaked with sauces, Zara leaned back and patted her stomach. See? A $5 dinner, but it warms you up like a wedding feast? Benson folded his arms, eyes softening. Maybe. You're right. Happiness doesn't have to be complicated. Zara squinted mischievously. See? I don't just cook. I philosophize. I should probably start charging extra. Benson laughed, the sound low and warm, echoing through the vast kitchen. It had been a long time since he'd laughed this much. Later that night, as Zara cleaned up, Benson lingered with a cup of coffee. Her words replayed in his mind. Happiness is like a hot dog, warm, timely, and shared with someone who makes you laugh. And for the first time in years, something inside him felt lighter. Perhaps amid contracts, stocks, and extravagant banquets, it took a clumsy maid with a street hot dog to remind him of life's simplest truth. That afternoon, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, spilling across the polished marble floors of the Hale mansion. In the back garden, Zara hummed softly to herself as she carried a basket of table linens out to wash. She felt oddly lighthearted. Never in her life had she imagined she'd become a maid in a billionaire's household. It sounded ridiculous, but at least here she had a warm bed, 3 meals a day, and a real job to do. She was hanging the linens on the line, still dripping with water, when the sharp clack of heels echoed behind her. The heavy scent of perfume arrived even before the woman did. Well, well, a biting voice sneered. This scene suits you perfectly, hanging laundry like the servant you really are. Zara turned. Juliet stood there in a body-hugging dress, heavy makeup painted on, a pair of dark sunglasses perched like a crown atop her head. Zara froze for a beat, then still managed a polite, "Hello, Juliet." Juliet folded her arms, eyes scanning critically. I thought Benson's interest was just a passing whim, but here you are, still clinging on. Pathetic. Zara pressed her lips together, ready to return to her work, but Juliet strode forward, yanked the basket from her hands, and threw it to the ground. Pick it up, Juliet ordered, voice sharp like a mistress to a servant, and scrub this patio with your hands, no mop. Zara blinked in confusion. But I was already working. What did you just say to me? Juliet leaned in, her face so close Zara could smell the perfume. You do what I tell you. Or do you think a couple of hot dogs and that naive little smile will get you into Benson's bed? Zara bit her lip, stepping back. She crouched down to gather the linens, her hands trembling. Humiliation burned inside her. But fighting back would only cause more trouble for Benson. Juliet stood with her hands on her hips, eyes narrowed in contempt. Good girl. Get on your knees, scrub every stone. I want to see your face smeared with dirt, so you'll remember your place. Zara squeezed the wet cloth so tightly that it dripped between her fingers. For 1 second, she wanted to hurl it at those glossy designer heels, but she took a deep breath, forcing herself to hold back. Just then, a low voice cut through the tension from behind Juliet. What's going on here? Both women jumped. Benson stood at the garden entrance, phone still in his hand, his eyes cold as winter wind. Juliet quickly spun around, pasting on a smile. Benson, I was just helping her. She was being lazy, so I reminded her. Reminded her? Benson interrupted, his voice like a blade. I just saw you throw her things on the ground and order her to kneel. Juliet faltered, then rushed to cover. Darling, I was only doing it for you. To remind her of her place. You don't want a new employee getting arrogant, do you? Zara immediately interjected, voice small. It's okay, I can do it. Please don't be angry, Mr. Hale. Benson's gaze softened as he turned to her. Zara, quiet. This isn't your fault. His eyes snapped back to Juliet, hard as steel. His voice dropped, each word deliberate. In my house, no one disrespects my staff. Juliet's face went pale. Benson, are you defending her? This cheap maid? Yes. He stepped forward, his presence looming. She works here. She deserves respect. And you, Juliet, you don't live here. You don't pay a dime toward this house. You have no right to order or humiliate anyone. Color flared in Juliet's cheeks. She tried to laugh it off. You're really throwing me out over some nameless nobody? Yes, Benson said flatly. Leave. Now. Juliet's jaw dropped. In all their years, Benson had never spoken to her so bluntly. You'll regret this, she hissed, eyes blazing, before storming off, her heels striking the stone path like gunshots. The garden door slammed shut. Silence fell again. Zara still stood frozen, clutching the wet cloth, her heart pounding. Mr. Hale, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble. Maybe I should quit before... No. Benson's reply was instant, firm. His gaze steadied on her, calm but unyielding. Zara, in this house, you bow to no one except the work itself. I hired you because I need someone who actually works, not someone to be humiliated. You're not going anywhere. Zara's eyes widened. No one, except her father long ago, had ever stood up for her like that. Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Benson stepped closer, picked up the basket Juliet had tossed aside, and placed it gently back in her hands. Keep doing your job, and next time Juliet, or anyone insults you, come to me. I'll handle it. Zara nodded faintly, eyes glistening, but a small smile broke through. Thank you. Benson gave a curt nod. His expression was still cold when he thought of Juliet, but when his eyes fell on Zara, his voice softened. You work here, Zara, and in my house, no one is allowed to look down on you. That night, alone in her room, Zara replayed the scene again and again, Benson's voice ringing in her ears. In my house, no one disrespects my staff. To her, it wasn't just about defending a maid. It was recognition, proof that she had worth, that she deserved respect just like anyone else. She hugged her notebook to her chest, smiling faintly. For the first time in years, she felt she had found more than a job. She had found a home. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home, to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. On Saturday morning, the Hale mansion was quieter than usual. Benson sat in his study, eyes fixed on his laptop as streams of numbers flashed across the screen. The butler had just brewed a pot of Earl Grey when the doorbell rang. The door opened to reveal an elegant woman. In her early 50s, tall, sharp-featured, but with warm eyes. Dressed in a navy dress and a string of pearls, she didn't need to flaunt anything. Her very presence carried the dignity of New York's high society. Madam Hale, the butler bowed slightly. Good morning, Arthur, she nodded. Is Benson home? Yes, ma'am, he's in the study. Zara, who had been wiping the coffee table in the living room, looked up and froze. This must be his mother. Heart skipping, she quickly set the cloth aside, stepped forward, nerves rattling as she tried to sound polite. Good morning, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you. The woman paused, her eyes scanning Zara from head to toe. There was a flicker of surprise at the sight of a young girl with a smudge of flour still on her cheek, bowing so respectfully. Too flustered, Zara blurted out, Good morning, Mom. Ma'am. Sorry, slip of the tongue. Her face turned crimson. God, why had she just called her mom on the very first meeting? To Zara's relief, Mrs. Hale let out a soft laugh, a rare smile that softened her stern face. That's all right, dear. An endearing mistake. Zara bobbed her head repeatedly, her heart thundering. While Benson was still in the study, Mrs. Hale gracefully took a seat on the sofa, her curious gaze settling on Zara. And who are you? I've never seen you here before. Zara hurried to answer, voice a little shaky. I'm Zara. I was recently hired as a household helper. My main work is cleaning, cooking, and assisting Mr. Arthur. I see. Mrs. Hale nodded slightly, eyes thoughtful. So you must be the girl who baked the cookies Arthur mentioned. Zara blinked. Arthur told you? The butler cleared his throat and looked away, but Mrs. Hale smiled. He said they were a little crooked, but the flavor was unforgettable. Zara flushed, lowering her head. Yes, I'm still clumsy. Clumsy is fine, Mrs. Hale said gently, as long as you're sincere. That afternoon, Zara decided to prepare a simple meal. After much thought, she chose chicken pot pie, a humble dish of stewed chicken and vegetables in a golden crust, the kind of comfort food you'd find in an American family home. Arthur eyed her kneading dough, tilting his head. Are you sure? Madame Hale is accustomed to French cuisine and Italian fine dining. Aren't you worried she'll think this ordinary? Zara smiled. I don't have anything fancy to impress her with, but at least I can bring a meal made with heart, and I believe everyone needs comfort food sometimes. Arthur studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. Benson came down to the dining room when the aroma of the food spread through the house. He was surprised to see his mother at the table, and Zara placing a steaming pot pie in the center, the crust golden and fragrant. Mother? Benson raised a brow. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? You were busy. I didn't want to bother you, Mrs. Hale replied calmly, then glanced at the dish. And this is... Zara quickly explained. Chicken pot pie, ma'am. A simple dish, but hearty and nutritious. I thought you might enjoy it. Mrs. Hale cut into the crust, steam rising from it. She took a bite. For a few seconds, silence hung in the air. Zara held her breath. Then Mrs. Hale nodded slowly. Delicious, very delicious. Benson's eyes flickered with surprise. He knew his mother's palate was notoriously discerning. Yet now she not only took another bite, she even offered Zara a rare smile. During the meal, Zara didn't try to impress. She poured more tea, set out napkins, and shared a small story about her father. My dad loved pot pie, she said softly, eyes growing distant. Every time he came home tired, I'd bake one. He'd always say, Zara, you make this better than the bakery. I never knew if he meant it or just wanted to comfort me. But I believe if someone eats what you cook and feels lighter, that's the happiest thing in the world. The room fell quiet. Mrs. Hale set her spoon down, gazing at Zara with something deeper in her eyes. My dear, her voice dropped warmly. You just described something I've always believed. A house can be large, a table grand, but without warmth in the food, it's nothing but empty ritual. Benson sat still, his expression shifting. He rarely heard his mother speak with such sincerity. After lunch, as Zara cleaned up, Mrs. Hale didn't leave right away. She followed her into the kitchen, watching as the girl washed dishes and wiped counters. You don't seem like any housemaid I've met before, Mrs. Hale said thoughtfully. Zara startled, glancing back. Do you mean I'm too clumsy? Mrs. Hale chuckled, shaking her head. Number, I mean, you're genuine. You don't flatter, you don't pretend. I like that. Zara flushed, ducking her head. Thank you, ma'am. Mom. Ma'am. Both of them laughed. When Mrs. Hale finally prepared to leave, Benson escorted her to the door. Before stepping into the car, she turned to him, then subtly tilted her head toward the kitchen, where Zara was fumbling with a dish towel, dropping it and chuckling at herself. I like that girl, Mrs. Hale said softly. I don't know why, but I feel she brings something into this house. Something you've been missing for a long time. Benson didn't reply. His eyes lingered on Zara from afar, watching her clumsy, endearing movements. He sighed, though the corner of his lips tugged upward in the faintest smile. Late at night, the kitchen was quiet. Benson carried in a stack of media proposals and laid them on the table. The cover read in bold, Hale, Future Towers. He poured himself a glass of water, hesitated for a beat, then called softly, Zara, could you help me with this? As just a regular person? Not as staff, not as an expert, just someone passing by who happens to see this campaign. How would it feel? Zara, still peeling an apple, looked up. You mean Like I just passed a billboard or scrolled past an ad, and then give my honest reaction? Exactly. I need an outsider to be blunt. She wiped her hands and perched on the edge of a chair. Benson pulled up the first slide. A glass tower shot from below, gleaming with the slogan, "Build up your life." First impression? He asked. Zara stared for a few seconds, then shrugged. Pretty, but cold. I feel shut out. Like the building is saying, if you want to reach me, crane your neck higher. If I were someone just worrying about this month's rent, I'd scroll right past. There's nothing that says, this is mine. Benson fell quiet. What would you want to see instead? Something at eye level, Zara said slowly. A window lit up, a warm kitchen lamp, wet shoes left by the door, a dish towel hanging by the stove. Things that whisper, people like you live here. He clicked on the slide labeled Key Message. The words appeared, Dream high. We'll take you higher. If people are already tired from climbing, Zara said with a faint laugh, they don't want to go higher. They want to stand steady, to breathe. If you were writing from that feeling, Benson asked, what would you say? Zara asked for a pencil and scribbled on the margin. Home is where you can breathe easy. Don't make me look up. Open the door and let me in. The key, not the fine print. Fine print? Benson frowned. Hidden fees, tricky terms, Zara explained. The biggest fear for low-income buyers is being trapped. Price sheets with loopholes, customer hotlines that never answer. If you want their trust, say it out loud. Every fee printed big, a 24/7 hotline answered by a real person, and tours that walk straight into the kitchen. Why the kitchen? Because the kitchen is the heart of a home, Zara smiled. Showrooms love to show off the living room, the sofa, the view. But ordinary people want to know, can this kitchen fit a big pot? Is there a place to hang a towel? Does the light feel warm at night? You're selling the feeling of living, not just square footage. Benson nodded, flipping to the customer persona slide. Stock photos of a grinning couple in suits. Let me make it real, Zara said, jotting notes beside the images. Maria, night shift worker, single mom, loves cheap chili that fills you up, needs space to hang baby clothes every evening. Deshaun works 2 jobs, loves basketball, and has to get home by 9:30 p.m. to read to his little sister. Add habits, smells, schedules. Then the characters have a heartbeat, she said, and when they have a heart, they'll listen. Benson's pen froze as though he'd just stumbled on a true insight. And the name Future Towers? Pretty but distant, Zara replied. Try Warm Lights, because everyone understands the joy of coming home to see the lights on. She flipped the cover and wrote, Warm Lights. Home starts at eye level. Turn on the light. I'm home. Benson fell silent for a long moment, then broke into a smile he couldn't quite hide. This is the first name in weeks that actually makes me want to come home early. To eat a $5 hot dog, Zara teased. To fix the whole campaign, he answered evenly. They both laughed. Benson circled back to his original question. If you were scrolling and saw a 15-second ad, what would make you stop? The click of a light switch, Zara answered instantly. Then warm light spilling over a small kitchen, a voice saying, have you climbed high enough to strain your neck? Come back down to eye level. And at the end, a pair of hands dropped keys on the table beside a steaming bowl of soup. Logo fades in, big and clear. No hidden fees, ever dot. And how would you feel after watching? Invited, she emphasized. Not lectured, not judged. Just kindly invited. Benson leaned back, his eyes softening. Thank you. That's exactly what I needed. An honest passerby's heart. Zara shrugged. I only said what I used to want to hear back when I was walking back to the shelter. He studied her, voice dropping. You still carry those days in the way you see things. Yes, Zara smiled faintly. And I write them down. She slid her battered notebook toward him. Slogans I scribbled back in my unfinished communications classes. But the spark never went out. Benson flipped through the pages, reading lines that were raw but striking. He looked up, eyes full of respect. Zara, these could be the emotional backbone of the entire campaign. I would like to invite you to join the user testing group as the voice of the audience. And if you want to return to school, I'll support your decision. No conditions, no strings, because the right person should be in the right place. Zara was silent, the kitchen's golden light washing over her face. I appreciate that you listened to me as just a person. As for going back to school, I want to, but slowly. I need to stand steady first. Benson nodded, not pressing. Then go slow. I'll be here. Keeping the lights on. Zara's eyes shimmered, a small smile breaking through. Then I'll try to write words as warm as a kitchen lamp. And I'll make sure the fine print disappears, he said, half joking, half serious. They packed away the papers. Just before leaving the kitchen, Benson glanced back. Thank you for helping me feel this campaign, in every sense. Tomorrow, I'll present the revised warm lights to the team. If you're free, drop by the meeting, as our passerby. Zara hugged her notebook and nodded. When the door closed, she scribbled one last line in the margin. If you want ordinary people to listen, don't speak high. Speak warmly. She set the pencil down, eyes lingering on the kitchen lamp. Warm, real, and close enough. Exactly at eye level for those still finding their way home. That afternoon, the atmosphere in the Hale mansion was heavier than usual. Benson had just returned from the construction site, his tie loosened and his shirt still dusty. He hadn't even stepped into his study when a familiar gravelly voice called from the living room. Benson, we need to talk. His father, Richard Hale, sat upright in a leather armchair, a glass of whiskey swirling in his hand. His expression was stern, pale blue eyes calculating. You've delayed the engagement with Juliet again, Richard said bluntly. You know how crucial the contract with the Udo family is. One marriage, Benson, and everything falls into place. Their empire joined with ours, construction and media. Our dominance will be steel solid. Benson set his briefcase on the table, his voice calm but edged. I've told you many times, I don't love Juliet. I will not marry her. Love, Richard let out a scornful laugh. Love doesn't build empires. Contracts do. Juliet may not be your type, but she brings wealth and backing. You're running dozens of projects. You need that power. Benson's fists clenched. I'm not a project, Father. I'm your son, a human being. I won't sell my life for a contract. The air in the room thickened. In the kitchen, Zara had been wiping down the counter. She froze as she caught their words. Her stomach twisted. They were fighting because of her. Juliet, the Udo deal, the contract, all circling back to the maid who didn't belong. Heart racing, she tugged off her apron. I need to leave before I cause more damage. Son, Richard lowered his glass, his voice cold as steel. You're letting some nameless girl with no family insert herself into your career. Juliet has been in tears with your mother. Soon the whole city will gossip. Benson Hale, New York's brightest CEO, threw away a strategic alliance for a maid. Benson narrowed his eyes. If that's what you call strategy, I don't want it. You'll regret this, Richard's voice thundered like a gavel striking wood. You're gambling away this company's future. I built this empire with blood, sweat, and tears. All you need to do is sign a paper, marry Juliet, and the empire stands unshaken for 30 more years. How can you be so foolish? Benson rose to his full height, his voice low, steady but charged with fire. I won't be a puppet, not for the Udos, not for you. I am not a business project. Father and son glared at one another, one clinging to power, the other to the right to live truthfully. Zara stepped hesitantly out of the kitchen, clutching her apron. Mr. Hale, she whispered. Both men turned toward her. Benson's eyes flickered with alarm, but Zara lowered her head and rushed out. I'll leave. I don't want to bring trouble to your family. Please rest assured, I'll pack tonight. Zara, Benson cut in sharply. His voice rang with fury as he turned to his father, eyes blazing. Do you see? This pressure you're forcing is humiliating her. You're not only trying to control me, you're driving an innocent woman out of this house. Enough. Zara bit her lip, trembling, unable to speak further. Richard's brows arched. So this is it. You defy your father to protect her? Benson, you're letting feelings cloud your judgment. A girl like Zara, she brings nothing but trouble. You're wrong, Benson said, his tone ice-edged. She's given me something money and contracts never could. Truth. She speaks plainly when every boardroom is full of yes men. She's shown me how ordinary people see what we build. Something we've forgotten for too long. Richard's grip tightened around his glass, his voice harsh. If you refuse this marriage, the Udos will withdraw all their funding. Our stock will collapse. Can you shoulder that? Benson stepped closer, meeting his father's stare head on. I can. What I won't shoulder is a false marriage. If this company can only stand because of a wedding contract, then maybe it isn't as strong as you think. The tension was suffocating. Richard shot to his feet, his face crimson. You are not the son I raised. Benson didn't flinch. Maybe not. I'm not a machine. I'm not your chess piece. I'll live my own way. Zara stood frozen, clutching her apron, eyes shimmering with tears. She had never seen Benson, usually so cold in business, burn with such raw emotion. Zara! Benson turned to her, his voice softening but firm with conviction. You're not going anywhere. This is my home. And here, you are respected. Her heart tightened, torn between fear and warmth. She nodded faintly, though dread churned at the storm that surely lay ahead. Richard's breath came hard and fast. Finally, he threw on his coat. You'll destroy everything. I won't let this stand. Benson's answer was short, unshaken. If I must choose, I'll choose truth, not power. The slam of the door echoed like a judge's final decree. The room fell silent. Benson sank into a chair, weary but with eyes still ablaze. Zara hovered behind him, whispering, You shouldn't defy your father because of me. Benson lifted his gaze, his deep eyes locking on hers. I'm doing this for myself, because we deserve to live honestly, not as pawns in someone else's game. Zara bit her lip, tears spilling freely. For the first time, she began to believe. Maybe she was more than just a maid in this house. Monday morning, Hale Tower buzzed with unusual commotion. Benson's phone rang nonstop, his screen flooded with messages. He frowned, stepping out of the elevator, when his assistant rushed over, pale-faced. Sir, Juliet is live streaming. The entire internet is exploding. Live streaming? Benson tilted his head. The assistant held up a phone. On screen, Juliet sat in a lavish bedroom, draped in a blazing red dress, lips glossy, voice shrill and sharp. You all need to know the truth. Benson Hale abandoned me, his official fiancé, for some homeless tramp. Yes, a homeless maid, a gold digger. She pretends to be pitiful, pretends to be helpless, just to live in his house, cooking, smiling stupidly. And now she's trying to steal my place. Doesn't the Hale family deserve better than this? Her voice grew more frenzied, her gestures wild. Every distorted expression is broadcast in crystal clarity. Benson sighed, shutting off the phone. Pathetic. Back at the Hale mansion kitchen, Zara sat frozen, her cheap phone trembling in her hands. Comments streamed across the screen. Wait, did she just call her homeless? ITF. Juliet sounds jealous of... That maid cooked for Benson? Lucky dude. Gold digger? More like gold-hearted if she helped his mom. Zara's chest tightened. She didn't care what strangers thought of her. But being dragged onto the stage of thousands of screens by Juliet felt unbearable. She was about to shut the phone off when a new message blinked. Zara, don't pay attention. Trust me. B. She inhaled deeply. At least he was still on her side. Meanwhile, in Richard Hale's law office, the senior Hale received the link. His secretary advised him to turn it off, but he continued to watch. Juliet's voice climbed higher, shrieking into the camera. Benson doesn't understand anything. I am the future of Hale Corp. I deserve to be the CEO's wife, not some rag picker maid. Who agrees? Hit the like button, and if not, get out. Richard's brows furrowed. The way Juliet barked at viewers, insulting her audience, flaunting designer bags and cars, sneering, girls like Zara are born only to scrub my floors. It was brazen, vulgar. He sipped his whiskey, for the first time in years, feeling a chill along his spine. This was the daughter-in-law I chose? The live stream dragged on for nearly 40 minutes. With every passing minute, Juliet's arrogance lay bare. She mocked, she ranted, she showed the ugliest version of herself, and the internet devoured it. That evening, Benson returned to the mansion. Zara still sat at the dining table, dark circles under her eyes, her battered notebook resting on her lap like a fragile shield. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered. "I did," Benson said, settling opposite her. His voice was steady, firm. "And so did everyone else. It wasn't you. She exposed herself." Zara bit her lip. "But I don't want your family's name dragged through the mud because of me." Benson shook his head, eyes locking on hers. "Honor isn't lost because of a woman who scrubs floors. Honor is lost when we prioritize arrogance over protection, and I won't do that." The words wrapped around her like a blanket, warming the fear in her chest. At the same time, in his office, Richard Hale placed his phone down after watching the full cut of Juliet's tirade. He sat in silence for a long while. Finally, his secretary asked softly, "Sir, shall we spin the coverage? Push the narrative in Juliet's favor?" Richard waved a hand, his voice low. The more we push, the more it unravels. Juliet is unworthy." It was the first time he admitted it aloud. That night, the news cycle replayed clips of Juliet's meltdown. Anchors smirked as they asked, "Billion-dollar wedding or a circus?" The public now questions whether Juliet Udo is truly fit for the Hale family after her on-air tirade against employees and the homeless. At the mansion doorway, Benson leaned against the frame, watching Zara rinse dishes in the kitchen sink. His voice was quiet, steady. "See? Truth has its way. I don't need to defend us. Juliet unmasked herself." Zara looked up, worry still flickering in her eyes. But inside, a small flame burned. For the first time, the world wasn't laughing at her. For the first time, they seemed to be on her side. That morning, the top-floor boardroom of Hale Tower was strung tight as a bow. On the glossy walnut table lay neat stacks of contracts, proposals, and draft agreements. At the head of the table, Chief Udo, a heavy-set man in a wine-colored suit, rapped his gold ring against the wood with sharp impatience. "Richard," he boomed, "you know the terms. Juliet and Benson's marriage seals our alliance. No wedding, no contract. Simple." Richard Hale, his silver hair combed back, his face as cold as granite, sat upright in his chair. Around the table, senior directors exchanged nervous glances, beads of sweat collecting on their brows as if they were soldiers awaiting a sentence. A long silence. Then Richard set his pen down, exhaling slowly, and raised his gaze to the man who had been his partner for decades. "Chief," he said firmly, "you've been my friend for years. But today I need to make something clear. I choose my son, not your deal." The room went dead quiet. One director nearly choked on his coffee. Chief Udo's face flushed red. "You would sabotage this alliance for a homeless girl?" Richard rose slowly, his voice low but sharp as a blade. "Not because of her, because I finally see the truth. Juliet does not respect my son. She does not respect my family. She doesn't even respect herself. A marriage like that would poison everything, including your precious contract. I will not sell my son's happiness to anyone." At the far end, a director couldn't help but mutter a quiet, "Whoa." Chief Udo slammed his palm on the table. "You'll regret this. My company will pull our investment immediately." "Then pull it," Richard replied, eyes burning with a strange new pride. "I built this empire with my own hands. I will not let it stand on my son's misery." He turned and strode out. Behind him, anxious executives hurried after. "Mr. Hale, but the stock—" He cut them off with a raised hand. "Stock prices fall and rise. I have only one son. I will not lose him." That afternoon, Richard returned to the mansion. The house was oddly still. Entering the living room, he found Benson standing at the window, while Zara fumbled nervously with a suitcase in the corner. She spun around, startled. Mr. Hale." Richard froze at the sight of the suitcase. "Where are you going?" Zara lowered her eyes, voice small. I don't want to cause more trouble. I know the Udo contract matters. If I leave, things will be easier." A pause, then to her shock, Richard let out a dry laugh. You think I'd choose a contract over my own son? Benson turned, startled. Zara stared, wide-eyed, unable to believe her ears. Richard stepped closer, pressing his hand on the suitcase lid, which shut it. I just walked away from that contract. Chief Udo stormed out in fury, but for the first time in years, I feel at peace. You really did that? Zara whispered. Yes, he nodded. Because I finally understood. Love and respect are the only true foundations, not contracts, and because my son deserves to live happily, not as a pawn. Zara's small hands tightened. Her heart trembled. For a moment, it was as if she were hearing her own late father speak. Tears threatened, and she quickly wiped them away. Child, Richard said softly, his voice uncharacteristically gentle, you made me see Benson smile, truly smile, something I had forgotten how to notice. So, don't go anywhere. Stay, as part of this family. The room fell still, save for the steady ticking of the clock. Zara choked out a whisper. This is the first time anyone's ever called me part of a family. Benson moved to her side, gently taking her hand. Because you deserve it, Zara. Through tears, she let out a shaky laugh, awkward but bright. Then, sorry, I guess this suitcase isn't even packed properly. Richard chuckled, a rare, light laugh of relief. Good, because from now on, you won't need a suitcase. This house is your home too. That evening, the three of them sat down together at the table. No lavish steak, no extravagant feast, just a simple pot of soup Zara had made. Yet for the first time, Benson and his father shared a meal without conflict. Zara looked at them across the table, her chest swelling with warmth. After years of drifting, she had finally found what she had been missing. She had found a family. The Warm Lights campaign had become a media sensation in New York. Gone from Fifth Avenue was the cold image of a skyscraper scraping the clouds. In its place, a simple photo of a rain-soaked doorway, a pair of wet sneakers left on the step, a golden kitchen light glowing through the window. Bold letters declared, home starts at eye level. News outlets reported nonstop. Hale Corp triples pre-sale projections in just 6 weeks. Investors call it the miracle of sincerity. The public buzzed, a CEO who actually listens to ordinary people, this is the future. Of all the praise, Benson only remembered one moment. Zara scribbling absent-mindedly in the kitchen. Home is where you can breathe easy. He knew, without her, this campaign would never have lit up people's hearts. That night, Benson led Zara up to the rooftop of Hale Tower. High above, the New York night wind whipped around them, the city lights blazing to the horizon. Zara gasped. Oh my God, I've never stood anywhere with a view of all Manhattan like this. Benson stood beside her, smiling faintly. You once gave me the experience of walking a garden path in a pair of tattered sneakers. Tonight, let me give you something in return. Zara laughed, remembering. The CEO in a tailored suit stumbling around in broken sneakers, while the bodyguard nearly bit his tongue to keep from laughing. It was unforgettable. You still remember that? How could I forget? That was the day I understood what it means to walk in someone else's shoes. And that was the day I realized I wanted to walk beside you. Zara turned, eyes wide. Benson, he drew a deep breath, then suddenly dropped to one knee right there on the rooftop. She froze. Wait, what are you? From a black velvet box, Benson revealed not just a sparkling diamond ring, but a pristine pair of white sneakers. They weren't ordinary sneakers. Golden charms dangled from the laces, each set with tiny diamonds that glittered beneath the city lights. Zara, Benson said, looking up at her with unwavering sincerity, these shoes once carried you into my house. Now I want them to carry you into our future. Zara was stunned. In her mind, the journey rewound. Those battered sneakers stepping into the Hale mansion, nights laughing over hot dogs, the first time he defended her from Juliet, the moment his mother smiled over her humble pot pie. And now those shoes, reborn in white and sparkling, were leading her into another chapter. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but laughter bubbled out. You are ridiculously romantic. Then let me be ridiculous. Benson's voice turned rough. Will you say yes? Zara burst into tears, nodding repeatedly. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. He slid the white sneakers onto her feet, then slipped the ring onto her finger. Zara looked down, half laughing, half sobbing. Oh, God! Who proposes with shoes? I have to tell the world about this. Tell them, Benson chuckled. Let them know a pair of sneakers brought a homeless girl into the heart of Hale Corp. Zara threw her arms around him, clinging to him in the rooftop wind, the city glowing below. For the first time in her life, home wasn't a faraway concept. It was here, warm in his arms, bright in his smile, and sparkling in the diamond-studded sneakers carrying her into their future. 2 springs later, Zara stood in a white graduation gown, the diamond-charmed sneakers on her feet sparkling under the sun. Her communication degree trembled in her hands, but her heart was steady. Down in the crowd, Benson held up a handmade sign. Proud of you, Warmlight. Zara burst into laughter through her tears. This wasn't just a diploma. It was the revival of a dream once deferred. From that day on, she balanced supporting Benson with Hale Corp's communication strategy while nurturing a dream of her own. Warm Voices, a nonprofit that taught storytelling skills to the poor, the homeless, and immigrant workers. The tiny office near the subway station buzzed with the clatter of keyboards and the smell of cheap coffee. Yet every story written there lit up like a flipped switch. Meanwhile, Benson became a media phenomenon known as the CEO who married his maid. Instead of avoiding it, they turned it into inspiration. On live television, Benson smiled and said, Yes, I married the maid because she taught me that a warm kitchen light is worth more than a cold tower of glass. Zara added, and because the work of caring for people is never small. The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. And Juliet, after her spectacular fall, she was forced to work for real. No gowns, no live streams flaunting designer bags, just a desk job at an ordinary advertising agency. The first time she received sharp feedback from her boss, she bit her lip and endured, rather than screaming. A year later, Juliet quietly attended a Warm Voices workshop, sitting at the back of the class to write her 100 words. Before leaving, she slipped a small scholarship envelope onto the table. Zara only nodded. No hug, no apology needed. Humility had finally begun. The wedding took place at a countryside farm beneath a blue sky and wildflower fields. No expensive champagne, just a hot dog stand on the grass, a wooden sign reading, $5 first date, on the house. Guests roared with laughter when Richard Hale, the groom's father, appeared in a tailored suit, wearing white sneakers. House dress code, he declared. Anyone who objects eats 2 hot dogs. Benson's mother beamed, her eyes shining, as she watched her son walk hand in hand with his bride down an aisle of blossoms. Zara was radiant in a simple flowing gown, her diamond sneakers glittering as proudly as her smile. Their vows made everyone laugh through their tears. Benson, I promise I'll always turn on the kitchen light before you come home. Zara, I promise to print every fine print in big bold letters so we'll never misunderstand each other. Both. And we promise to always keep hot dogs at 2 a.m. Laughter and applause mingled with the glow of fairy lights strung across the meadow. That night, after the party wound down, Zara sat on the grass, her wedding dress pooled around her, sneakers gleaming. Benson sat beside her, their fingers entwined. Out in the distance, guests still laughed, and Arthur was still grumbling about running out of buns. Isn't it strange, Zara whispered, that it all began with one fall? Benson tilted his head, his eyes sparkling. Not strange at all. The day you fell into my arms as a maid was the best accident of my life. Zara laughed, tears spilling down her smiling lips. Behind them, the farmhouse lights glowed warm and steady. Warm lights, casting a promise across the night. From this moment on, every step, every story would shine together.